If you don't have it in you to take up arms against the injustice, then you gotta pray another prayer. And you gotta walk in it with conviction. He will provide, but you gotta do your part. You gotta find what it means for you to be a soldier. Beat back those that are trying to kill everything good and right in the world and call it making it great again. We can't afford to be just citizens in a time of war. That'll be surrender. That'll be giving up our future and our souls. Ain't nobody get to sit this one out, you hear me?
Nothing's gonna go back to the way that it was. Not really.
I saw something. What is it? I don't know. I felt it everywhere.
It's close to midnight. Something evil lurking in the door. Under the moonlight, it's the outside that almost stops your heart. You try to scream, but terror takes the sound before you make it. And you start to breathe as someone looks you right between the eyes. We are paralyzed because this is dead. And no one's gonna save you from the beast of the strike. You know it's dead. You're fighting for your life inside a thriller.
Darkness falls across the land. The midnight hour is close at hand. Creatures crawl in search of blood to terrorize your neighborhood. And whosoever shall be found without the soul for getting down must stand and face the hounds of hell and rot inside a corpse's shell.
The demons squeal in sheer delight. It's you they spy, so plump, so right. For though the groove is hard to beat, yet still you stand with frozen feet. You try to run, you try to scream, but no more sun you'll ever see. For evil reaches from the crypt to crush you in its icy grip. The foulest stench is in the air, the funk of 40,000 years, and grisly ghouls from every tomb are closing in to seal your doom. And though you fight to stay alive, your body starts to shiver, for no mere mortal can resist the evil of the thriller. Can you dig it? Yeah.
look ahead for the team. Took a bullet for the dream that we would one day all be free. Free from prejudice, free from sexism, free from bigotry. I die for creativity. I die for freedom to be free. I died and left a legacy. Oh, but baby, I still live through technology. After the sun, comes the rain. And after the storm, the sun will start shining. What is a pain? And tears of pain. And tears of pain. And a dash of struggle. Just be patient. Your destiny will manifest. Yes, balls in the sand.
What is going on? What's going on? What's going on, y'all? I got this African thriller beat in the background, baby, because we have to call on the spirit of the ancestors for this one, okay? Because the live we getting in to on today, this afternoon, is about a bunch of motherfuckers playing in your face, girl. A bunch of people who will use fear tactics against you, baby, to make your ass fall in line. But I wonder if there's gonna be anybody out there that's going to resist the fear. Okay? Because we got people now talking about how empathy is a sin, that empathy is bad, that empathy is of the devil. Okay? We gonna get into it this afternoon, but I need y'all to be present in the building. I need y'all engaging. I need y'all to be sharing, to be liking, to help this message get out. Because community is what we need right now, baby. Because we're about to experience a motherfucking thriller night. And I mean that thriller night is gonna be like a damn season in the Game of Thrones. Fucking year-long ass seasons. Okay? Y'all better understand what Michael Jackson was talking about back in the day. You hear them lyrics in the beginning? You think they talking about zombies, right? The undead. But if you really pay attention, especially in this climate, baby, it's a bunch of conservative motherfuckers that are afraid to let their fear-based shit die, to the point that they're willing to resurrect old shit to make themselves feel better. So yeah, the undead is coming, baby. It is coming to swallow your ass up whole. But we got information now. We have awareness now. And now we have the ability to walk in strength. But it can't just be one motherfucker. I'm gonna need a whole bunch of y'all. Because this is the game, excuse me. Girl. About who is fear-based and who is free. Y'all ready? Well, before we get into it, what's going on, Queen Stevie? We got Queen Stevie in the building. Queen Stevie said, doing wonderful, just got out of hair and makeup, okay? Shout out to the Queen, because she is always working. Especially on the things that she believes in, spreading the good news of love and inclusion, diversity, equity, things that make life vibrant and not so black and white. And yes, please make sure that y'all thumbs up the live. Now, before we get into the live, y'all know I have to do the right thing, y'all. No shade. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use. for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. All the videos, songs, images, and graphics used in this live, okay, belong to their respective, yet some of them ignorant-ass owners, okay? And BubzDaGawd does not claim any rights over them. So we're going to be taking a look at two things today, okay? We're going to be looking at one clip that's about 20 minutes and the other one is about like 40-something minutes. So the video is close to an hour. Y'all already know how BubzDaGawd give it up. Hopefully this will be under 3 hours. I will try my best. Try my best. But the first video we're going to take a listen to, in reference to empathy being a sin, let Christians tell it now, is from a platform that I've used a few times before entitled The Faith Community Virtual. Okay, make sure y'all go over there and check out their video as in other videos and lives and subscribe to them. I should have tagged them in this live, but I was trying to hurry up to get all this stuff done as early as possible because I didn't want to do it in the evening. Okay? Who knows? Hopefully there might be a collab in the future because I would like to be in the midst of that and what they're thinking, what they're talking about, learning from each other. Because again, community is what's going to keep us together, especially with what's to come. Then the second one is going to be from an individual by the name, or the channel, excuse me, is named Believe It or Not. And I think I might have to do a few watch parties with some of their content because they are also deconstructionalists of organized religion, and the way they break this shit down just be like, wow. Wow. Like, you talking about objectivity? This guy does it. No shade. Not perfect by far, but still does the damn thing. Still, you know, give us its due deals. But first, let's get into the video, okay? From the Faith Community Virtual. And they're going to be addressing a clip about empathy being demonized, and particularly, no shade, white evangelicals preaching the message that empathy is a sin, empathy is wrong. Let's take a listen.
Go ahead, Pamela. I just want to say that I want white women to be offended. I want y'all asses to be offended because sometimes the offense is what makes us check ourselves.
So reaching for the stars, we're going to look at a little clip of a Christian nationalist white woman named Allie Beth Stuckey. She actually wrote one of the books circulating right now, demonizing empathy, and her book is called Toxic Empathy: How Progressives Exploit Christian Compassion. All right, so again, we're not just talking about this just to be talking about it. I know there are a lot of people who've never heard of this concept, but that's part of our job, right? To be plugged into this stuff so that we can tell y'all about it. So let me tell you, the people who are talking about this stuff, the people who are doing this stuff are running the country. It's worth mentioning that one of the quotes floating around the internet right now comes directly from Elon Musk, saying that empathy is the demise of Western society.
The fundamental weakness of Western civilization is empathy. The empathy exploit. They're exploiting a bug in Western civilization, which is the empathy response.
So this is not some fringe conversation. This is happening in real time at the highest levels of power in this country. So here's Allie.
And not even at the highest levels of power in this country, but also on the every regular schmegular day of an American. You literally have people who profess and confess. I'm sorry, proclaim and confess, excuse me, putting those words together, okay? That they are followers of Christ, but yet don't want to walk in the element that made Christ, which was a higher awareness and understanding, overstanding of emotional intelligence. understanding how energy works. Emotion, energy in motion. But you have people who are only walking around with a title and an idea and a falsified characteristic about that title, as opposed to actually being and doing that in the present moment when it actually matters. Let's continue further.
Beth Stuckey,
I will be pausing a lot
on some podcast talking about toxic empathy for reaching for the stars, and then we gonna break this down a little bit. All right, here we go.
If we are so in someone's feelings that our empathy leads us to affirm sin, to tell them lies, or to support behavior, or in the case of politics, policies that are wrong and destructive, that's when empathy has become toxic. So our empathy for a pregnant woman who is struggling, who feels like she is alone and that she can't do it, if our empathy leads us to the conclusion that abortion is the best option for her, then we're not really being loving. We might be being empathetic, but our empathy has turned toxic because we are affirming sin and we are leading her down a path that is not only deadly for her baby, but spiritually and physically harmful for her. And so my book is not about killing all empathy. It's certainly not about killing compassion. It's not even about negating all of our feelings. It's about saying empathy has a place, but the Christian is called to truth and love.
I spent some...
No shade before they get into that, because they're going to get into that. I kind of want to give my opinion about it. There are some people who are so deep and drowning so deep in their pain that they will project that pain onto everyone else to make them feel comfortable, right? But it's in a falsified way of, I'm not gonna do my own work to deal with my own triggers, so that when life does happen to me, I also have an opportunity to look at it in a different type of way. And I think that's the missing part that people who are Christian and not Christian are not really clear on, that we need to talk about more. Yes, to the people who are not doing their own mental, emotional evaluation and work, or working out their own soul salvation, will not be able to help anybody else, because you first can't help yourself. So yes, for the people who can't help themselves, they will try to make everybody else do it. If that's done in a manipulative way, then yes, call all that out. The problem and again, call that out if it's something that is objective, to where no matter what you believe as far as organized religion, whether you're gay or straight, regardless of your race, regardless of your class, that again, because of empathy, if I was in that position, am I going to have a complete 360 view so that I have as much information as I possibly need to make the best and well-informed decision? These individuals are using organized religion, something that is supposed to be subjective, something that's supposed to be a personal relationship with, and you're taking your perspectives of what you believe and forcing it onto other people. But again, because the majority of people in this country, or a lot of people in this country, are Christian, and they believe this whole falsified white supremacist lie about Christianity, that y'all are literally sitting here and forcing people to believe what you believe, because let's be real, you struggle in believing it. And sometimes when I get in the flow and I stop, there are some times where I'm reconnecting my thought, because sometimes I just want to really cut deep, like we need to cut deep in this bitch, and I realize a lot of people ain't ready for that. And people will do crazy ass shit once you start hitting that tender spot. But with organized religion, because you have been taught a certain way to look at something, it's not just a personal opinion or belief, oh, well, this is what I feel, but I'm still going to treat people as people. I'm still going to respect. That's not the case here. It's the fact of, girl, y'all not ready for none of this. I really be trying my best to like say this in a way that's digestible, because a part of me just want to just get completely fed the fuck up and just go the fuck off. But I realize that people will not really listen to the message, because again, yes, everybody's scared. I wish people could just realize they're scared, they're confused, they don't know what the fuck to do. But that's why you're supposed to be talking, connecting with other people. And yes, people who think differently than you. If everybody think the fucking same, girl, and ain't no growth in this bitch, you become stagnant. So you need something to come in to give you a new way of thinking. And instead of doing that in a human type of way, in a loving, compassionate, empathetic type of way, because somehow we don't know how to do our own work, we might as well go ahead with these individuals who are master manipulators in reference to being the creators of war and then being the remedy of the war afterwards. And they play on everybody's fears and ignorances and strengthen those areas so we can't really come together. So that when people like myself, who are speaking what is known to be a part of the objective truth, it's not the truth, but it's a part of the objective truth, because you have to love yourself first. Once you start doing that, then you can make great change. But if you try to make America great again by doing some old shit, bitch, you ain't changed. Or how did somebody say it? Everybody's okay with change as long as change looks exactly like it did in the past. And the reason why I know it's fear-based is because now we're in a position to where you cannot fucking ignore it now, bitch. It ain't just gonna be the niggers and the fags and the bitches. I'm using y'all lingo. We ain't the only ones that's gonna feel it. It's gonna be those that feel very motherfucking privileged and feel very safe who are going to feel it and are feeling it right the fuck now. But what we saying is no shade, girl. Since y'all saying that empathy is something that is evil and bad, girl, for the motherfuckers that really believe that, then don't feel no type of way, girl, when you are met with the same thing. Because didn't Christ say, do unto others as you would have them do unto you? To treat your neighbor the way you want to be treated, girl. So you can't treat people like this and then feel some type of way when they treat you the same way. When we're trying to have conversations that can go somewhere, that can actually be productive. But the only way that's gonna happen is you gotta have the conversation with the productive motherfuckers. This shit is going to get dangerous. And I'm sorry, I know some of y'all like being distracted by life and you want things to happen. You have hopes and dreams. I have hopes and dreams as well. But these next 4 years, we don't know what the fuck the next 4 years. In the next 3 months and some change, girl. What is this country gonna look like? Fuck 4 years. We are, again, 3 months and some change. Halfway point of Project 2025 that they've been telling you what they gonna do, and then people gagging because they actually doing it. I keep telling y'all better start facing death right now, baby. Because it's going to be a big old energy, fucking dark cloud of death that is going to come over this country. And the sad part is that we had so many chances to get it right. When it was happening to oppressed, marginalized groups of people, most of America told us to shut the fuck up. But now that we're here and you are now part of the club that we are, we might as well add LGBTQIH, heterosexual, C for Christian, W for white girl. Let's just add everybody, girl. It's gonna be the whole alphabet, bitch. Welcome to the club. Welcome to the club. But even though we going that way, let me tell you something. If we going to hell altogether, get ready to get some of this motherfucking work, bitch. No shade. Ain't no time to be cute. Oh, now, not, no, baby. Oh, now you want to come eat all of that. Eat all of that. Especially when motherfuckers been warning y'all about this. That shame that y'all love talking about, baby, sit in it. Sit in it. And the frequency is intense now. You even got motherfucking dogs and animals, girl, that when they ass feel guilt and shame, girl, they doing shit humans do, girl. They facing the damn corner and shit, ain't looking at your ass. They know that you talking to them and you yelling at them, girl, but they ain't even looking at you, girl, because they like, yeah, that girl, fuck, whatever, girl, fuck you. They over there looking, girl, hiding shit. So if the dogs can feel it, you telling me that the gods can't feel it? The dog's backward? The reason why these people want to kill empathy is because they don't want to feel bad about what the fuck gonna happen. How'd that work out for Judas' ass? Queen Stevie says, I'm sorry, she didn't die. She got arrested for miscarrying the same way, I messed that name up, excuse me. Amori Marsh from Orangeburg, South Carolina, which is 25 minutes away from me, was also facing up to 22 years for miscarrying. Wow. That shit is crazy. T for T says I'm out here working in the yard, but I'm listening. I'm about to help you with your whole yard shit. You welcome. No shade, because I'm going to talk my shit. Queen Stevie says exactly the white people that voted for the Mandarin colored man girl. They did so. Okay, they did it to hurt us as black people. And now they're the ones that are hurting. I'm not scared of anything, and I've learned to overcome my fears as it pertains to fascism. You cannot be afraid, because when you cower in fear, you feed right into them and give them exactly what they want. T for T says, when was America great? During slavery, during the 40s. And again, when people bring up those talking points, girl, they be like, oh, that's so long ago. That's so far long ago. But yet y'all want us to keep referencing a 2,000-plus-year-old book as if though it's in the present day. Make that make sense, baby. It's got to be equality across the board. That's what y'all don't like. Because y'all don't feel special, girl. You are unique, but you're not special. I'm sorry to break it to you. You are unique and you're worthy of being loved, but you're not special to where you have a level of supremacy in this bitch. I need for y'all to understand that. Okay? And again, now that, in the words of Jasmine Garden, They removed the shackles from us physically and put it on us mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And then just expanded the plantation. Queen Stevie says, T for T, that part. Donald Trump was born in the 1940s during Jim Crow era, and that's exactly where he has taken us, trying to take us back to a time where black people were told we have to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, okay? The bootstraps. This man is literally drafting up the SAVE Act, which he signed an executive order on yesterday saying that we have to provide a valid passport in order to be able to vote, to show that we are legal citizens, and we know exactly why he's doing this, to crack down on immigrants voting, to crack down on people who typically vote Democrat. Wow. Which is black people, elderly, to stop people from registering, to hold power forever for centuries the same way Hitler did. I keep saying it, Hitler ruled for 12 years, and he doesn't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. And Mike Waltz and Hegseth, girl, that's these damn motherfucking Call of Duty ass names and shit. Ghost Recon ass names, and JD Vance are not going to resign. He literally invoked the Aliens Act of 1798, have people who were legally here in this country deported to another country because of their tattoos. And that is the thing. If these motherfuckers keep playing the same book, girl, if it's the same book, girl, if they keep remixing some old shit, and we keep letting them remix the old shit, something's wrong with us. That's why fear is their biggest thing, and they gonna utilize all of it. But the gag is that fear is abundant in this bitch, girl. It can be transmuted, which means that not only will we be scared, y'all will be scared too. We might as well let everybody be scared of this in this bitch. So because they're doing the same playbook, we gotta do something different. Which is why I appreciate individuals like the faith community virtual. So let me go ahead and be quiet, and let's listen to their perspectives on empathy and this white chick and Christians believing that they have to kill empathy. They have to kill the one aspect of Christ. They have to be anti-Christ in order for them to get through this ethnic cleansing that they're about to do. So don't feel guilty about it. But the gag is we're in the information age, baby. This shit is stored, it's recorded, and being seen all around the fucking world. And most importantly, bitch, God see it. But see, you got motherfuckers who don't really believe in God or eternal force or something that is karmic or keep things in balance, who feel like it will not get them. Oh, baby. Let's continue.
Time in like white charismatic evangelical spaces, in my 20s and 30s. And I remember late 20s, early 30s. I remember that was one of the places where I really began deconstruction, because the conversations that we were having, which is this conversation around toxic empathy, was really an attempt to justify dehumanization.
Yes.
It was never about, they always, I remember I talk about this all the time. I was a part of I really love prayer. Still do, but not the same way. So I used to go, I was telling Pamela, girl, I don't know why I can't get up in the morning on Saturdays. And I was like, it's probably because I used to be at fucking 6 a.m. prayer for about 5 years of my life on a Saturday, walking the church halls praying.
Prayer service.
And so in that group, I got involved with other young adults who were in these spaces, and I got invited to a Bound for Life rally. And Bound for Life is where you put this red tape on your mouth that says life, and you pray this weird witchcraft prayer over there, and you pray for God to end abortion. All of those prayers have been answered with this legislation without acknowledging that this is Christian nationalism doing exactly what they have plotted and planned to do. This is not a move of God. This is not supernatural. This is not holy. It's a war against God, the God of the Bible: love, justice, walk humbly, do mercy. It's a complete opposite of what that means. Y'all not getting me. It's the complete opposite of that. And so they've co-opted Jesus' message with this white supremacist Christ that is the God of genocide, the God of terrorism, the God of hell on earth. So I'm very bothered because I also feel like, you know, to the white women in our congregation, this is not against you. Please don't be offended. But I don't think that white women historically understand the danger that they put the world in, because as a woman, you're getting on this podcast mic with your soft, sweet voice and literally telling us to buy into ideas that will harm other people. You're setting us up to do what happened in Nazi Germany. It's like so obvious, and we're just asleep. Go ahead, Pamela.
I just want to say that I want white women to be offended. I want y'all asses to be offended, because sometimes the offense is what makes us check ourselves. And I understand where you're coming from, friend, where you don't want anybody to feel bad. You don't want anybody to take on that burden. But sometimes we need to be offended. We need to be disturbed, because being disturbed is what will make us question ourselves. It will make us question what we believe. It will make us question what we follow. I need white women to be disturbed.
For me,
and before they go forward, again, shout out to both of them queens, baby, because I love the way that they think. And old girl remind me of Jill Scott. I be wanting to see her ass and be like, you know, I was just thinking about you. Wondering how you look. If you still wear the same cologne. Had the next boyfriend of mine try that same kind. But it stunk on him, though. You know what they say. Everything ain't for everybody. I mean, but I tried anyway. You sure did smell good. Hey, yeah. It just ran across my mind. Let me stop. Shout out to both of those queens for what they said. And I get it, because here's the thing, because I can see on both sides. There are Christians who are saying this. There are people who are not Christian who are saying this. Basically, what is being said here, which I can agree with, again in the gray area, is that you have to work out your own soul salvation. And however you decide to do that, whether it's through the lens of Christianity, Buddhism, whatever expression it is, whether you don't believe in anything, do it in a loving way to where you are empathetic. If we are empathetic, it will make us think before we act. Because yes, a lot of times we can get distracted and shit and put ourselves in compromising situations. And let me just say this, just because you're Christian or you believe in something does not mean that you are exempt from this shit. If anything, it should mean that you are more aware of what is possible. But also with God and things being expressed, you have to understand that there has to be a tangible manifestation of it. That's why it's called supernatural. It's still natural, but it's super. And one of the ways to manifest anything supernatural is through love and understanding. But yet, when it's your ass, and I know people sitting there saying, oh, well, shit, if I do wrong, correct me. Yeah, we say that shit until we're in the midst of it. Until the universe puts some shit together to where now your ass is dealing with that internal guilt and shame that you have made real. Because you're getting triggered by it. And all organized religion has done is taking that guilt and shame that's meant to help us to grow and be better, to self-reflect. First of all, if you sitting here trying to help a motherfucker, what you gotta say gotta actually help a bitch, objectively. Not what you think, what you believe, what you feel, but objectively help them. And the only way you're gonna do that is to get that big tree trunk out your damn eye before you go talk about what's in your brother's eye. But Christianity says instead of doing that, come to me, I'll be a shepherd, I'll be your leader, I'll be the one to do all of the hard work for you. Just give me your money. And show me how much you love God by deciding which line you're going to stand into. Because all the shit that's going on in the world, grocery prices getting higher, people getting evicted and shit, deported, all this other type of stuff. Where's the church at doing community work? Especially since they're not supposed to be taxed. That means they have extra money, extra resources to give back to the communities where they at. Oh, they're in the pulpits, scared out of their mind and telling your ass that the only way you gonna survive and get food and shit is you better fall in line with this system. It's so funny that a lot of individuals who are going to see in this live, girl, especially with the second part of what they're saying, they walk in Christ, girl, but you can smell the stench, the funk of 40,000 years of that old dead ass type of way of living and being and thinking. And want God to come back into their temple, inside their box, their fucking coffin, for them to understand, as opposed to going out into the world and finding God in it.
This whole toxic empathy, sin of empathy, I think about it as a theologian, all right? Somebody who has developed a theological framework from my own life. I didn't develop Greatest Commandment theology so that I could necessarily share it with everybody else. I started with just trying to come up with something that worked for me. And this idea that the greatest commandment is that we love God and how we love our neighbors and how we love ourselves. So as I begin to have conversations with people about my theological framework, the number one question that I got, which I referred to in my book, Breaking All the Rules, the number one question that I got is, well, what about sin? Because fundamentalist indoctrination is tethered to sin consciousness. You cannot fully embrace fundamentalism unless your view of the divine is tied to the idea of sin. So how can I avoid sin? Sin is the worst thing you could possibly do. The wages of sin is death. Yep. And the last thing I want is death. So the last thing I want to do is sin. So everything revolves around sin. And the problem that fundamentalists and Christian nationalists have with empathy is that if you actually show empathy to people who they have condemned as sinners, you're going to start to see, oh, this is a human being and they have real experiences and their feelings matter. And maybe we shouldn't be treating them like that. So when you hear them talk about the sin of empathy, because she just did it in that whole clip, she referred to sin multiple times. We can't have empathy because then we'll excuse their sin. We can't have empathy because we'll just jump into their feelings and excuse them from transgressing against the Lord, which is why we spend so much time here interrogating what we believe about sin. It's why we have developed a working definition of sin that is rooted in the greatest commandment. If the greatest commandment is to love, then sin is anything that contradicts love. And the first rule of love is to do no harm. So when we approach sin from the perspective of do no harm, it is a complete 180 from how fundamentalists taught us to understand sin. Because in the fundamentalist understanding of sin, harm is not a consideration at all. You can be miserable, you can be depressed, you can want to end your life. That's your problem. Because
Let me tell you
if you wasn't sinning, this wouldn't be an issue. So we have to demonize empathy, because if we don't demonize empathy, you might realize the stuff that we've been telling you is a sin. We really been manipulating your ass.
Hard, yes. Especially that last part. Everything he said, especially that last part. When I was reading on my channel, and again, you can go back and see for yourself, the book, The Cross in the Closet by Timothy Keurig. I already explained, gave a breakdown of what that was. Basically, a heterosexual man who was deeply religious in the deep Bible South, girl, white man, full of privilege, had an experience that kind of made him walk in empathy, literally, by walking in the shoes of queer people, and for 1 year doing this experiment saying that he was gay, meaning he was coming out to his church family, to his actual family, friends, and him documenting that journey, and also his own internal dialogues that he had. The times he wanted to quit and give up, but then he kept thinking, again, walking in empathy, I want to give up, but I'm thinking about these people that Christ has called me to love, that Christ has called me to love. Yeah, these are people who are hard to love, but Christ has called me to fucking love them, which means I have to do my own internal work. Timothy Keurig did that, written a whole book about it. Yet we don't hear any of that. And one of his experiences, or plenty of his experiences, again, if you go back and listen to it, there are people who stopped being his friend, who did not want to associate with him anymore. Meaning that if these individuals were depressed, and Timothy wanted to call on a church person because we're told that these people are supposed to be here. I am here. You don't have to worry. I can see your tears. I'll be there in a hurry when you call. Friends are there to catch you when you fall. Here's my shoulder. You can lean on me. But when the time comes, bitch, all of a sudden, if you do talk to me, just like old boy said, no shade. Well, the reason why your ass depressed and the reason why you got this and that and whoop-de-whoop-de-woo is because you have subscribed to a sinful lifestyle. Now the devil whooping your ass, and that's what your ass get. And no shade. Just keep it all the way a bean. Because there are possible realities here. Some people, unfortunately, have to get to a point where they are so lost in their shit that they have to face whatever it is head on. You have options, boo. There are some people who, unfortunately, yes, self-eject out of this situation, out of this simulation. There are some that get lost in drugs and alcohol and reckless ways of living, trying to feel something. Yes, they still have to work out their own soul salvation. Yes. But love should always be the answer. But again, you have choices. Again, free will. Let's continue down that free will thing. There are also going to be some people who are going to get so lost and deep off in the darkness to where they're going to start dragging motherfuckers into the darkness and doing all type of dark, insidious, twisted shit to them. Have we not watched countless documentaries and Netflix adaptations of serial killers? Aren't school shootings on the rise? Aren't destructions of life still on the rise? Agents of chaos in all areas. White people, y'all thought it wasn't gonna happen to you? Those realities that can also affect your motherfucking life. But since we're using the narrative of the Bible, girl, Christ just said, look, just do these two things, girl. Because first of all, y'all getting on my damn nerves, girl. I wish I could find that video of that little boy bothering his mom while she was taking a bath. She was like, can you leave me alone? And he go around saying, huh? Can you please leave me alone? And he get an inch closer. Huh? You heard me. What? Leave me alone? Huh? Getting louder and louder and shit, girl. Just pestering the fuck out of Christ, girl. And Christ said, look, girl, look. Shit. Look, do these two things. Love the Lord God with all of who you are, girl. That means including loving yourself and the creations outside of yourself, girl. Love yourself first so you can love other people. Get to the overflow state, bitch. Maybe if y'all stop giving from your personal cup, give from an overflow. And damn, inspire other people to do the same thing so that people can be accountable for their own shit. But somehow that's impossible, and this system picked up on that, which is why, again, they create the problems and then become the solution. Because let's be real. If what organized religion is saying to be true, then why the fuck does history repeat itself when you say that you're connected to something that can end it all right the fuck now? For it to never happen again. Oh, because you don't have that power. So you go for the next thing. You go for death and destruction and fear. It's kind of like Homelander from The Boys, where he says something along the lines of, I would love to be worshipped and adored and celebrated by the people, but if the people ain't gonna give me that, I'll take the next best thing, which is fear. I know it's not organic. I know it's not real. But damn it, I'm so desperate, I'll take whatever the fuck I can get or what I can get out of you.
We frame things. We take things that are happening realistically, and then we reframe them under the guise of whatever we believe about God. And so when you talk about all of the things, the consequences that you go through and the things that happen to you, what Christians will do is they will say that's your consequence for going against God.
Sin consciousness is at the root of all of this. And if you have not interrogated what you believe about sin, then this teaching could grab a hold of you, because the whole teaching is rooted in what they have defined as sin based on their doctrine. So you gotta interrogate what you were taught about sin to not get caught up in this. Cause like this shit don't bother me. I am fully all the way into the sin is harm category. Like, and I'm looking at harm. So like even with the whole abortion conversation, which is the Christian nationalist wedge issue, and it has been for the past 50 years. Wedge meaning it polarizes the society. It breaks people in half. So either you're pro-life or you're pro-choice, right? And there's no way for you to have any nuance in that conversation because they created it that way. So then when they talk about abortion, they're tapping into your binary thinking that if you believe that a woman has a right to choose what she's going to do with her body, then you're going to hell with her. So then when they talk about it in the context of abortion, then they got you. Right. And for me, when it comes to abortion, my thought is always, damn, that's a really unfortunate position for anybody to be in, to have to make that decision. But that is their decision, what they're going to do, because whatever's going on inside of their body, the key words are their body. And it is a sin for me to mandate what they can do with their body, because it don't have no impact on me what they do with their body. I might have my feelings about what they do with their body, but it doesn't change me from being able to live my life in the way that I see fit. But that is the major issue that they use to drive this point home of the sin of empathy.
I was just going to add that it's really interesting that we don't care about what people do with their bodies until there's another possible body involved, or what we consider a body, or what your church or your theology considers a body. People starve. People's bodies starve, and we don't care. People's bodies don't have homes, and we don't care. People's bodies don't have adequate education, and we don't care. People's bodies don't have access to resources for their families and their babies, and we don't care. So my thing is always this selective morality that we have about what we're gonna care about what matters. Everybody wants to care about the unborn and all of. What do you do? Because you caring about whether or not somebody chooses to terminate their pregnancy for whatever reason, whether they just don't want to have kids at this point, or it was a traumatic situation, whatever reason, you criticize that. But when the baby gets here, you've taken away WIC, you've taken away Medicaid, you've taken away funding for public education, you've taken away all the things that helps the baby thrive and grow. So you don't get to say shit to me about deciding not to have a baby for you to take the resources from. You don't get to if you have the power to decide to remove all the resources, I should have the power to decide whether I'm going to bring a baby into this neglectful ass society of yours. Hello? You tell us not to have an abortion, and then we place our babies up for adoption to go to better homes, and then you come in with the white savior complex and pretend that you saved our babies from a life of whatever. Like, no.
Pamela
I used to work at a private adoption agency, so I know how this shit go.
And
hold on, that is the truth. Well, let's let him finish. I'll wait.
We started an adoption process for ourselves prior to the pandemic, and we were in like this adoption training preliminary stuff with other people who were adopting. And there was this like really rigid Christian couple that was asking some of the wildest questions, because, you know, they were talking about like, allow the child to engage in what is culturally, germane to them, and let them engage in spaces that are culturally appropriate. And these white folks said, so like, do we have to go with them? Or
the struggle for me in terms of this toxic empathy trend is, especially for women, I'm concerned about women who fall into this mindset that somehow dehumanizing others is okay. And it goes back to that conversation we were having earlier about power adjacency and how you could align with something that is completely against your best interest because that's what you've been indoctrinated to believe. So no, you don't think you're gonna get harmed. I'm a good nigga. I'ma live. They gonna get them. They gonna get the ones in the field. I told Massa, but no, you're not. You're gonna get the same consequence and execution as that other person. And the dehumanization aspect is such a big deal to me because it's writing on the wall for what we will say to justify harming someone else. In the name of sin. We're saying they're a sinner, so it's okay to harm them, which is actually us doing the harm and the sinning.
So
hey everybody, just a warning.
Now, before we get into that, because this individual right here, shout out to him. Believe it or not, baby, again, we're gonna have to do a watch party on some of his shit because this is just so good. To their point, that is the reason why they want to control women's bodies. That's the reason why they want to go against queer people. That's the reason why they want to go against black people. Here's the thing. If we look at the numbers, white people, let's just be honest, they're now becoming a minority. When I speak about majority and stuff like that, also understand that I'm speaking on some of these people's level. Because sometimes you got to be able to meet people where they at. That's how you help them. That's how you work things out with them. Okay? Again, they're against these groups of people because they're a minority. And they are afraid that what they have done to the world is going to happen to them. And they gonna fuck around and manifest that on their own without any of our help, because we're just trying, for the most part. You do have some people that are supremacist in their perspectives and perceptions, but for the most part, people just want to be happy and to live their life, especially if they're not harming themselves or anybody else. Point blank in the fuck period. But the powers that be need more bodies. That's why they want the ones that are coming into the world, because at least with them, they have the opportunity to groom and to exploit and abuse and project upon because of their insecurities. And the part that crazy is that it don't matter how much, again, money, power, fame, title you have, status, you gonna still always be a human being, bitch. See, you forgot that. The universe has not. So to their point, why would people want to bring babies into this world if this is the world that's going to be there for them? And even if they do get raised, or even if they do get raised, Lord, even if they are raised in a loving household, they still have to go out into the world and connect with the world. And right now, humanity is sick. It is sick with fear and ignorance and bitterness. And instead of sitting the fuck down somewhere and self-reflecting while our body is trying to organically remove the American body, the human body, humanity is trying to remove and purge this sickness out of our body, girl, we doing extra shit. Because now that we sitting down, we got to sit and think about some shit. Because we can't move. We can't be distracted. We can't go on with life. Just, I don't want to think about it right now. I don't want to deal with it, bitch. Okay, girl, you ain't got to deal with it if you don't want to. But understand, that bitch is going to rival every fucking Jehovah's Witnesses that there has ever lived, girl. These motherfuckers going to be like that new movie of that one black girl, or the black lady that be sitting in front of people's lawns and shit until nighttime, girl. These hoes going to be sitting there, bitch. Accountability is going to be sitting there at the door. Don't matter where you at. It's kind of like that damn Conjuring ghost, bitch. I forgot her name. The motherfucking bitch in the black wedding dress and shit. Every picture that was taken of that boy, girl, as he was growing up, the motherfucker getting closer and closer and closer. That's exactly what's going on right now. And like I said, I want to be wrong about this. And I don't like being wrong. That's why I educate myself. That's why I study to show myself approved. I'm not perfect, nor I'm not claiming to be perfect. But I'm claiming to be aware. And I'm claiming that I'm growing in my awareness. And no shade, the more you become aware, the more scary shit get. Let me look at y'all comments real quick. Queen Stevie says, yes, indeed, especially now that Elon Musk and Donald Trump have weakened the Social Security Administration. When people do not see their income, their benefit to be able to pay to put food on the table, feed their children, feed themselves, and to also pay for their medications, to pay for education, to pay for all of these things. That funding is going to directly to Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and anybody else who is a billionaire or a millionaire. They want to inflict as much pain as possible. White Caucasian girl, Lord. White Christian nationalist in the audacity to lay hands on Donald Trump, knowing goodwill that this man is a whole demon. There's nothing Christ-like about him. And again, he said he wasn't Christian. So it's funny that y'all have a person who is not Christian, the head of y'all helm. If that was the fucking case, you might as well should have put the fucking drag queen where y'all tell it. But they laid hands on him and prayed over him and are now grifting for their own monetary gain, if you know what I mean. Tifa T says, yeah, I don't believe in sin or hell. Queen Stevie says, hell, I sin all the time. I like to sleep in the nude and wear nothing but my Chanel No. 5. Oh, well, I guess I'm going to hell. Come on, join hands with me. Let's go together to the religious zealots out here that love to bash us in the gay community. Not just the gay community, but also women for having their own autonomy, for having their own independence, or any other marginalized group. They voted against their own interests. Now, we're going to get... Is there more? Damn, there is more. And the same ones be giving Vivica Fox and Michelle Williams from Destiny's Child fever for not having children. Not every woman wants to have children. We're not going to help them. Our Project 2025 is to rest. Black people, stay out those goddamn streets. Okay, almost time for you to go. Okay, then, thank you so much, Queen, for coming back. I'm not trying to be long with my shit, no shade. I'm really not trying to be long, because people's attention spans is not that long, unfortunately. But anyway, moving on, we're going now to a video by Believe It or Not, and it is entitled The Sin of Empathy, and he kind of speaks about Christianity, especially from the white perspective. This is very interesting, girl, okay? Yeah, let's go ahead and get into it, okay? Because I'm going to let him cook, okay? And no shade, he got flavor in his cooking, girl. No shade, I already passed the test. Okay, girl, Lowry season salt. We got a nice balance of all this. Approved. And you didn't put no raisins in this shit. Thank you.
Before we get started, what I'm about to show you is so shocking that the President of the United States of America has demanded an apology from it, and many, many evangelical Christians are shook to their core about how awful it is what this person said. So I just want to give you a quick warning before we get started.
In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families. Some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals. They may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals.
Oh, scandalous. She was so arrogant. The way she didn't even acknowledge the President of the United States of America.
Yeah, she didn't even acknowledge the president, except for the part where she acknowledged him.
Let me make one final plea, Mr. President.
She had an opportunity to minister the gospel. Instead of that, she is a heretic. She should never be allowed to preach the message of Jesus in her life because she's not even talking about Jesus.
Yeah, she didn't even talk about Jesus.
In his Sermon on the Mount, Jesus of Nazareth exhorts us to love not only our neighbors, but to love our enemies, and to pray for those who persecute us, to be merciful as our God is merciful.
Or at least she didn't make Jesus say the things that conservatives want Jesus to have said.
It was designed to insult him publicly in front of the whole nation, and it succeeded.
An openness to one another across our differences, because in fact we are more like one another than we realize, and we need each other.
But of course they're upset. If Jesus were to say the words he said today, he would be called a woke rabbi pushing his DEI agenda, and they would crucify him again. Good Samaritan? How about all lives are good? Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. This verse is quoted so much these days by evangelical pastors, and it's usually just to dismiss someone who was simply asking for the slightest bit of empathy. I think it really applies to these people who call someone asking for love and mercy the work of the devil.
Satan, presenting himself as the angel of light, as always, presents the version of God the world wants. And all the world is watching, and they're super happy that the Christian representation just rebuked him. If a Christian speaks and all of the world is saying that's the version of Christianity we like, something is wrong. Jesus didn't lie to you when he said that you will not be loved, you will be hated for his name's sake. And if they wanted to kill Jesus off his words, if you repeat his words, it will never end with people saying that's what we need to hear. No.
Because they support this man.
2 Corinthians, right? 2 Corinthians 3:17. That's the whole ball game.
You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian.
I'm a Christian.
I love you. Get out. You gotta get out and vote. I am the chosen one.
I moved on her like a bitch, but I couldn't get there, and she was married.
Footage from 1992 found in the NBC archives shows the future president welcoming Jeffrey Epstein to his Mar-a-Lago estate.
And by his own admission, he was no stranger backstage while owning parts of 3 different pageants for nearly 2 decades.
You know, they're standing there with no clue. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible looking women. And so I sort of get away with things like that.
By the way, your daughter,
she's beautiful.
Can I say this? A piece of ass. Yeah. She looks more voluptuous than ever.
She's actually always been very voluptuous. She's tall. She's almost 6 feet tall.
79-year-old Ryder sued the former president last November, alleging he raped her in a department store dressing room in the mid-1990s, and then defamed her by denying it ever happened.
Donald Trump guilty on all 34 counts, the first former president to be convicted in a criminal trial. He will now be a convicted felon, go down as a convicted felon in the history books. And Sumi, of course, on the ballot in November. Voters will now have to contend with if they are comfortable voting for the Republican presumptive nominee to run the nation's highest office, to go into the White House when he has been found to be a convicted felon who was interested in corrupting the 2016 election to get into power.
Oh, they were comfortable with it. In fact, they loved it. But apparently it doesn't matter anymore because empathy is a sin now.
Girl. Now, first of all, that type of delivery is type of shit that I like and that we low-key need more of. Because, girl, all he doing is literally just using y'all words,
everybody, thank you so much.
Y'all say, what y'all think, what y'all believe against y'all. You have people out here right now who are Christian nationalists, girl, especially white, that have a criminal at the helm of their movement. A sexual abuser, girl. A person who doesn't know how to do credit good, bitch, because they have been bankrupt plenty of times. And no shade, caused millions and millions of deaths, girl, in the country because this individual knew about C18+1, girl, months before announcing it. Y'all really proving who the real scared people are, bruh. So y'all just gonna choose Barabbas again, right? You just gonna choose Barabbas again. And of course you want to kill empathy, girl, but again, since y'all want to operate in that type of spirit, girl, Judas spirited ass bitches. Okay, girl, well, let's not forget about what happened to his ass, girl. And a mob didn't have to do that, bitch. His own guilt and shame caused him to do that.
For liking and subscribing and commenting and everything else, you're just so wonderful. I have the links down below for the Patreon and the merch and the other social medias, which are changing up a bit because of all the craziness happening in the world right now. So check those out. Find me on all the platforms. So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets. In other words, this is the whole ball game.
That's the whole ball game.
And we remember when Jesus said to love your neighbor as yourself. Or in Romans where it says, rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. Most people would look at those verses and say, you know what? I think that the Bible might be telling us to have empathy. But apparently not.
We live in empathetic times, and no, this is not a good thing.
You're kidding, right?
We also live in a time of increasing fragmentation and polarization, resulting in virulent forms of tribalism. Back in the day, when we were faced with old school tribalism, the tribe was an objective reality outside yourself, and it set one's baseline. This was when tribes had names like Apache or McGregor. As a result, members of a tribe tended to grow up with a fixed loyalty to that tribe when considered against all others, and empathy was out of the question for others. It was doled out accordingly. What was good for the tribe defined everything, and you empathized with a fellow member of the tribe simply because. Less to no empathy was accorded outsiders. In other words, tribal membership determined the empathies.
Oh, the good old days, where you could hate people based on their nationality.
In our fragmented times, we are seeing the opposite, like a river reversing course. Instead of tribes, created by geography, ancestry, and language, establishing our empathies today are now establishing our tribes. Shared sentiments now harden groups into tribes, complete with tribal loyalties. I was once walking through a major city and passed the Center for the Empowerment of Deaf Alcoholics. That's an example of hyper-specialized empathy.
Hyper-specialized empathy. Isn't that like the whole point of empathy? That each person is different and on their own journey, and in order for us to live in peace, we should recognize that. But also, many deaf people have trouble communicating with people who don't know sign language, so it makes sense that a group like AA, where you are encouraged to talk to each other, would have a group specifically aimed at people who are able to talk to each other.
Yeah.
It takes 1 second of thinking to understand this. It takes the smallest amount of empathy to understand this. But Dougie here would much rather be upset that there is a group that he can't join. Probably because most clubs in the world would never want him as a member.
Sorry, not you.
Doug.
Why not? But you let in
Doug.
Glumplet.
It says no.
Doug's.
We're allowed to have one.
Which will result, in the long run, in a fairly small and exclusive tribe. Sort of like the White House press corps. Often drunk, never listening.
We get to do jokes? I love comedy.
So I want to preach a message today titled, When Empathy Becomes Sin. When empathy becomes sin. Help me, Jesus.
Help him, Jesus, indeed. Help him teach the exact opposite of what you did.
To preach this message, I believe that this will help you understand a lot of the root cause of a lot of the craziness in the world.
Today, we are going to talk about the dangers of one, maybe two concepts. It depends on how far we get. Two traits or characteristics, if you will, that we have been told are universally positive, but are actually dangerous and destructive. And that is number one, empathy, and number two, inclusion.
So the one thing about the Bible that almost everybody would say is a positive message, we're just gonna chuck that part right out.
But here's what happens. Empathy has become a cult. And what it does, it says that we want to reduce the standard, lower the standard for the least healthy, least mature member of the community. And once we do that, then someone less healthy arrives. And eventually we've eroded all standards. And in the name of compassion, healthy, strong, competent, capable people, starting with heterosexual men, no longer feel welcome. And what you see is in the cult of empathy, the least healthy people are welcome and God is not.
See, that's exactly what I'm talking about, human empathy. It's as useless as the Winter Olympics.
Yeah, when we say mega is a cult, they get defensive.
Right.
But wanting to have basic empathy for a fellow human is a cult.
We're going to spend our time trashing empathy. Like, doesn't empathy just mean putting yourself in someone else's shoes, trying to understand how someone feels, to comprehend their position so you can listen to them, learn from them, and then potentially, if necessary, advocate on their behalf?
Yeah, that's right, but I don't think she's using the right tone here.
Like, what could be wrong with that? Isn't empathy what helps us be less judgmental and kinder to people? And then inclusion, how could that be bad? What's wrong with trying to bring more people into the fold, making sure more people feel seen and heard? Shouldn't we, especially as Christians, be creating a more inclusive and empathetic society? Like, isn't that what Jesus would want? Isn't that loving people, loving your neighbor as yourself? The answer is, though, I've realized over time and after some thought and some reading and some investigation,
and while needing to support a fascist in order to keep her job and keep her hate-filled audience,
that the answer is actually no.
Wow.
The answer is no. Not only should we not be prioritizing empathy and inclusion in our own lives, prioritizing, I mean every word. So make sure that you're listening to what I'm saying. I'm not saying, as I will talk about, that we shouldn't care about these things at all, but we should not be prioritizing empathy and inclusion in our lives. We also shouldn't be pursuing these as top societal values.
it's about fixing the Bible and adjusting your own moral compass to better align with your politics.
Because I hear Democrats say a lot, and you've pointed this out, that progressive Christians allow their politics to drive their theology, not the other way around. And so I hear a lot the justification of Christians who vote Democrat by saying, I'm voting for the least of these. I'm voting for the marginalized. And I said, look, I'm actually voting for the least of these because the least of these is Jack Phillips. The least of these is the persecuted Christian who, for the sake of biblical values, has been absolutely harassed and a victim of lawfare by progressive activists for the past 12 years. So when I'm actually looking to vote on behalf of the least of these persecuted Christians, I want to vote for the party that best upholds their liberty, that's not going to put pro-lifers in prison the way the Harris and Biden administration is, but it's going to pardon those people. That's like Romans 13, governments are instituted by God to reward good and punish evil. I see the Harris Biden administration doing the opposite.
But it's not like...
Wow. How can y'all sit up here and be victims when y'all claim to be connected to something that will never leave you and forget or forsake you, and we're cut off from that? How can that possibly be the case, ma'am? Unless you don't even really believe in what you believe, which is why now you gotta force people to do it. And the fact that y'all want to deny queer people services on the grounds of them being queer. Okay, well, there are going to be some queer people who are going to leave your establishment, but also tag your establishment in their next post. Which means that they're going to let other queer people or those that are on the side of humanity and not fear to say, hey, do not support these people because these people are queerphobic. And on top of that, if you're going to discriminate against somebody based off of their sexuality, then I need you to accept, if you're going to be objective here, that people are going to be able to discriminate against you. So for the people who use the Bible as a weapon, understand, I hope that you can wield that motherfucker well, because you're in there too. But this is why they want to harm us, because they know that if we do that, girl, everything that we do removes every obstacle of fear from them so they can see the reality of it. But just like a little fucking kid, they want to hide under the covers, hide under the bed, hide in the closet, as opposed to standing flat foot in the dark and saying, whatever the fuck is in this bitch, when I open my eyes, I'm swinging. Because you ain't just gonna take me like that. But now the people who are the oppressors are getting a taste of their own medicine. And instead of being empathetic and saying, wow, was that what I was doing to you guys? Wow. They want to sit here and defend their actions and use God as a trump card, if you will, no pun intended, to somehow be exempt from the judgment. Yeah, y'all better hope that Jesus don't really come back, girl. That's probably why y'all trying to stop this diversity, equity, inclusion. Because if we were actually to get to that point, Christ might actually come back, girl, and y'all afraid that Christ gonna whoop y'all ass, not ours. Because according to the scripture, he died for the world. He ain't died for the church. He ain't died for the Christians of organized religion. He died for the world. Which means that All of us are his sons and daughters and brothers and sisters. Now, just because you don't like your brother and sister don't mean that we ain't part of the family, and you might want to keep it the fuck cute.
That the conservative values say that a human being can be illegal, and the Bible says to clothe and feed them and treat them as equals, so they twist the Bible so it doesn't say that.
And in the Bible, we see very clearly that everywhere a wall is mentioned when it comes to a city, it is literally or metaphorically a symbol of protection and provision and security and stability. A man without self-control is likened to a city without walls. That means you are very vulnerable to attack. And actually, when we look at the beginning, God places man in a garden, not in a jungle, but a garden with parameters that is meant to be worked and to be kept and to be cultivated. We see that heaven itself has walls. Walls are symbols of security. God placed us in a country. God placed us in a nation with a government. Those are his ideas. Laws were his ideas. And so all of these things are for the safety, security, and the flourishing of human beings.
Walls weren't there to stop illegal immigration. They were a defense against warring nations. They were there to stop armies. There are plenty of verses about how to treat the immigrants in your land. Cursed is anyone who withholds justice from the foreigner, the fatherless, or the widow. He defends the cause of the fatherless and the widow and loves the foreigner residing among you, giving them food and clothing. They adjust their Bible to fit their political views. It's why evangelicals spend so much time talking about the definitions of words instead of doing anything, instead of actually talking about the issues at hand, because they need a distraction. Because it doesn't matter how everyone uses a word. What matters is that they find a loophole so that they don't have to be held accountable.
There's a modern term that's all the rage today. It's empathy. Empathy. Whereas sympathy is to suffer with, empathy is to suffer in. This term, empathy, was invented in just the last 100 years.
So first, let's talk about what empathy is. It comes from the Greek empatheia, which means in a state of passion or emotion. And I'm around in about the beginning of the 20th, end of the 19th century, which is Einfühlung. I think that's how you pronounce it, which literally means in feeling. It was built on that Greek word.
And then empathy is this more modern term. It was like invented in like the 20th century. It's not like this ancient word or this older thing. It's invented in the 20th century, and it means to suffer in. So that's kind of the key like linguistic deal. And I think
why does it matter when a word was invented? The concept of empathy has been around forever. Language is constantly changing. There aren't too many words that we use that existed 1,000 years ago, the same way they exist today. That doesn't mean they aren't useful terms. That doesn't mean they aren't real words.
And for a long time, it communicated something like, try to put yourself in someone else's shoes and see the situation or the suffering from their point of view. Now, if asked, a lot of Christians would say, empathy sounds even better than sympathy. Empathy seems like a more virtuous type of compassion, a more loving way to treat people. And maybe it was originally kind of like that. But this term empathy has been corrupted and co-opted by the critical theory, pro-victim, demonic agenda.
Wow.
That's just a way to dismiss people who want everyone to be treated equally. Because you can't go against all the people wanting equality, you have to call them the critical theory group. Because calling it what it is would make them sound like the bad guy, and they are trying to avoid that.
And that's the problem. They can't, because how you gonna sit up here, again, when they were using the whole abortion situation, and be so worried and so gung-ho about the life that ain't here, but then when life does come into this world, especially the ones that are not desirable or what you consider to be the norm, girl, you get mad at people having empathy to be able to include them. Girl, wow. That's why they want to unalive people, girl, because they can't explain it. So they might as well take your ass out to avoid explaining it.
Both sympathy and empathy can be harmful. Both can be destructive, but especially empathy. So how? Because feeling too much for someone can blind us to reality, a reality that is bigger than someone's experience and pain. It can make us forego principles that are higher than this person's experience and pain. It can cause us to ignore the truth, the objective truth, in favor of how a person feels. So when we allow someone's pain to become our own pain, we then become unable to separate feelings, which are subjective, from reality, which is objective.
Or that feeling too much for someone could mean that you have to stop being mean-spirited. Because why care that families are being torn apart, and why care that refugees are being sent back to a place that wants to kill them? My audience hates them because they aren't white, so I have to hate them too.
She calls all of these people asylum seekers and says they've all been vetted. Why do they have to go home? And J.D. Vance has a response to that. Here is SOT 7.
Well, Margaret, I don't agree that all these immigrants or all these refugees have been properly vetted. In fact, we know that there are cases of people who allegedly were properly vetted and then were literally planning terrorist attacks on our country. That happened during the campaign, if you may remember. I don't want my children to share a neighborhood with people who are not properly vetted. And because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force any other American citizens' kids to do that either.
No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me.
Yeah, so that kind of became the meme yesterday. That became the rallying cry. It's like, make America great again, and then I don't really care, Margaret.
Nothing says that I don't have sympathy or empathy better than I don't care, Margaret.
Now we need hats and we need t-shirts that when Vance runs for office in 4 years, I don't really care, Margaret needs to be on the red hat that he sells.
Have you checked all these people's identification cards?
No, we haven't done that. Why would we have done that, G.I.?
To see if there are any known Nazis.
You don't kick full nationalities of people out of your country because some of them committed crimes. If we did that, we wouldn't have any people left because it's not about where somebody is from. It's just that some people, some human beings commit crimes.
And the fact of, if we're going to play that game, since y'all are going to generalize other people, then don't get mad when other people generalize you. So with that being said, all white people are racist. All white people are narcissistic. All white people believe in white supremacy. All white people want to call oppressed groups of people their slurs. Every single one of y'all. But then we start having those conversations. Oh, well, I'm not racist. I have a black friend. No, I mean, again, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. But the fact that you feel like you're exempt, that's supremacy. And you're not. If it's one thing you're going to always be, above all things, regardless of what you believe is human. Because until y'all can sit up here and tell death ass to behave, and you tell death when you ready to motherfucking leave, until then, y'all can't say shit to me because energetically we are all equals.
You prosecute the people who committed those crimes. You don't kick everyone out who happens to kind of look like them.
Because so empathy is the sort of thing that you've got someone drowning or they're in quicksand and they're sinking. And what empathy wants to do is jump into the quicksand with them, both feet. And it feels like that's going to be more loving because they're going to feel like, I'm glad that you're here with me in the quicksand. The problem is you're both now sinking. Right? Whereas if you do, I'm going to keep 1 foot on the shore and I'm actually going to grab onto this big branch and then I'll step 1 foot in there with you and try to pull you out. That's sympathy. And that's actually helpful, but to the person who's in there, it can feel like you're judging me.
So metaphors are great because they help to explain what you were trying to get across in a relatable way and more people can understand it. The problem is when people dive a little too far into their metaphor to the point where they are no longer talking about a real thing in the real world. Empathy is not a body switching comedy. We aren't doing a Freaky Friday. When you put yourself in someone's shoes, that's a metaphor. When you feel what they feel, that's using your imagination. You are still you.
I'm me?
Hey, don't jerk me around, fella.
That we need to be careful so that we don't only fall to the temptation of arrogant judgment, that particular sin, but that we also don't fall into the same sin that that individual is committing. That as we seek to restore someone caught in sin, there may be a temptation to join them in that particular sin. And I think of empathy in those terms. A lot of times what people in our culture, what they desire is not actual solutions to their problems, to their suffering, not actual help or aid, but instead what they desire is just for us to perish along with them.
According to the world, this is how you empathize. According to the world. This is according to the National Council for Mental Well-Being. Here are some of the keys to empathy. First, if someone's hurting, you should listen non-judgmentally, they say. So, I'm not judging you, I'm not gonna judge you, I'm just gonna accept everything as you say it. It sounds nice on the surface, but what it requires you to do is turn off the part of your brain that sees the difference between right versus wrong.
Empathy isn't a treatment. It's not a separate thing from sympathy. It's not the opposite of sympathy or compassion. It's not the advice you give. It's simply a method to give you a little bit more perspective before you get to any of that. It's not the judgment itself. It's how you get there.
Exactly. Just like, again, if you were to go into the court of law and you're a juror on the jury stand, in the jury box, when they're vetting people for that process, they have to make sure that they find people who are going to be unbiased, non-biased, however you say it. They're not going to be biased. They're not going to listen to hearsay. They're going to listen to what the fuck has been presented in the fucking case in reference to evidence and testimonials. That's it and that's all. You take what is being presented to you. Then you use critical thinking by taking everything that you have seen, observed, again, and not in a Christian standpoint, not in a heterosexual standpoint, not in a black or white standpoint, but looking at the actual objective thing and putting the pieces together. That's how it should be, because don't they say that you are innocent until proven guilty? Empathy allows you to, again, have more information, so like it was stated, you can make the most informed decision. But y'all don't want to hear the other side. Because you know that if the other side was heard, we would see the holes in y'all's logic. And y'all can't handle that because y'all been trying to cover up y'all holes in y'all damn logic for the longest time.
Empathy, according to the world and modern psychology, says you got to remove all of your biases and preconceived notions when you're listening to someone sharing their point of view. Now, again, on the surface, that sounds good, but they would even include your preconceived Christian notions. So yeah, I believe marriage is between a man and a woman because the Bible says so. They would say you got to let that bias go in order to be empathetic to LGBT people.
My dad, who is no longer with us, didn't have the most progressive views when it came to the LGBTQIA community. But also, I remember once when I was a teenager, he met a man who was upset, and my dad asked him how he was doing. And the man told him that his boyfriend had broken up with him. My dad didn't start telling him he was a sinner who was going to hell. He just said, yeah, it's really hard to lose someone, isn't it? I'm so sorry you were going through that. Because he understood that whether or not he agrees with how that man was living his life, he knew that this man was going through a hard time. And he knew that if he lost somebody and somebody started giving him a lecture, that he would be very upset.
The world says in order to empathize, I've got to validate their feelings and experiences. Like whatever you feel is right, and however you say it happened, we're going to just say that's how it happened. If I ask questions like, well, what did they say? What did you do? That's not being empathetic, they would say. And then they will say, you should listen without any advice being given. Don't give advice, just listen.
Listening without advice doesn't mean that you never give advice. It just means you listen, empathize, assess, and then give advice if appropriate or if asked.
Yeah. Empathy is the means, the conduit by which relativism is pouring into counseling.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So because the question of what really happened is made secondary to the emotional state of the person in question, right? So that becomes the end-all, be-all of everything, and any challenge to that is a threat.
I talked to my therapist at one point about something my friend posted online and how it affected me, while also admitting immediately that I misread what my friend said and that my friend didn't mean it the way I read it. I understood their intentions by the time I got to therapy. I understood that I misread what they said, but it also brought up feelings. If my therapist had just said, so they didn't actually say anything to hurt you, so you shouldn't have been upset, so there's no actual problem, that really wouldn't have done much, would it? Instead, we talked about why it affected me, regardless of the intention. We talked about how I dealt with it, what I learned from it, and how to approach it next time. I was wrong about the situation, but I wasn't wrong about the way I felt. So we worked on both. I know I have to work on thinking about it and rereading it before I react. But I also know that there's a reason I have those feelings.
That was good breakthrough.
Yeah, but that didn't solve anything.
It's not about solving. It's about communication and empathy.
Screw empathy. But they won't acknowledge that because it's about othering. It's about judging. So they find a way to play the definition game, and they find a way to make empathy a sin. Not because they care about correct definitions, but because they don't want to have to take a look at themselves.
I don't get it. No, I don't understand.
You're overreacting, dude. I didn't get into college, and check me out. I'm kick-ass.
They don't want to adjust their behavior. They don't want to treat people as they would like to be treated. They don't want to love their neighbors as they would want to be loved. And they can't say that they are being empathetic when they aren't at all. So they twist the definition. So when someone says you aren't practicing empathy here, they can say good because that's a sin. When really what that person is saying is that you aren't behaving like Jesus told you to behave. But they can't admit that they have no desire to act like Jesus told them to act. So they continue to look for verses that they can twist and they can make say what they want it to say.
Remember this, the prodigal son, it says, after he had spent on lavish living all of his inheritance, he was off in a distant land and a famine came. And he got a terrible job, low-level, entry-level job, feeding pigs. And it says that he was so hungry that he was looking at the pods, the food, the pig food, and longing to be filled with it, wanting to eat the pig's food. And then there's something else that we often forget. The text says, and no one gave him anything. What incredible love. And the immediate thing that follows that, no one gave him anything. And then he came to his senses. And he said, the servants, the slaves in my father's house have it better than I do. I should repent. I should go home. I should go back to my father. And he's rehearsing his repentance speech the whole way home. So what changed his mind? What made him say, I'm going to repent. I'm going to change my ways? Well, he came to his senses. And what made him come to his senses? No one gave him anything. Did you know that handouts damn people?
That was obviously not meant to show how loving anyone was here. It was meant to show how hard the world would be without Christ, without returning to God. There are plenty of verses where you are told to feed people, to house people, to clothe people, but he chose to take a verse meant to show how hard the world can be to say, see, we aren't supposed to help people. Because he doesn't let his theology guide his political views guide his theology.
First of all, that's a parable about grace, not faith. Also, the prophet in that story is Elisha. Gehazi's his servant who he cursed with leprosy. I mean, I learned this stuff when I was 7. In a coloring book.
Then he will say to those on his left, depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me. They will also answer, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or needing clothes or are sick or in prison and did not help you? He will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for the least of these, you did not do for me. Then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life.
Luckily, there's someone on staff who's an expert in both medicine and the Bible. Also the sequel to the Bible that my grandpa wrote.
Yep. You mentioned that I'm being likened to a Nazi. Well, that was Russell Moore in the pages of Christianity Today in a very passive-aggressive way because he didn't like how I interpreted a verse in Matthew 25. I said a very mainstream view that when Jesus is saying the least of these, he's actually talking about persecuted Christians. Now,
that's what a Nazi would say.
Christians are called to care for the poor elsewhere, but in that particular passage, he is talking about how we treat his people is basically how we treat him. And Russell Moore said that that's basically an interpretation that a 20th century German soldier would have, which is an absolutely, like, it's so absurd, it's hard to even engage with it.
Of course, American evangelicals are not the least of these, besides maybe in critical thinking skills. Russell Moore wasn't wrong here. This is a fascist ideology. She's actively finding a way to remove any reason to have compassion on people who aren't like her. Jesus said that it matters how you treat the least among them, so they find a way to make it so it's not that.
Oh boy. Nazis.
Just like how these same people use the part of the Bible where Jesus says that the poor will always be with us as a way to say that they shouldn't work too hard to help the poor. Because you can use the Bible to say whatever you want the Bible to say.
Emotion. And emotion, while it absolutely has its place and is natural, it very often ignores facts.
Every argument against trans people is based on unfounded fears, not on facts. It's not the trans people in bathrooms assaulting people, it's cis people. It's not drag queens in libraries touching children, it's youth pastors and priests.
He provides so much comfort to those in need, the elderly, the infirm. But don't worry, I don't let him around the kids.
What's that supposed to mean?
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. And that's priests, not chaplains. Not all priests, but of course some.
But mentioning that hurts their feelings and goes against their narrative, so they ignore it. They say immigrants are on welfare and leeching off the government. But do ICE raids at places of employment? That's not facts over feelings.
So it used to be when you were, debating someone or talking through an issue, your debate would be based on logic and reason and facts, and maybe you'd give your credentials, like your personal accomplishments, your education, your professional background. But now it's very different. People today, they preface their arguments or they preface their statements with all their victim credentials. They got to lay all their victim cards down on the table. So like I could be here, I could say like 2 + 2 = 4. That's just a fact. And someone who is steeped in critical theory would say, well, I, as a disabled, transgendered, female immigrant lesbian, say your understanding of math is based on your white, male, patriarchal, Western privilege.
That's not victim credentials. You're not a victim because you're disabled. You aren't a victim because you aren't cis and straight. People are just acknowledging where their perspective is coming from to give context to what they're saying. Someone who is black is going to experience life differently in America than someone who is white. That's just a fact. Someone who is disabled is going to have a different experience than someone who is able-bodied. Someone who is LGBTQIA is going to have a different experience than someone who is straight and cis. Ryan mentions his race and gender and sexuality all the time, but he doesn't see that as playing his victim card.
This is why a lot of people, they cringe. You might not even realize this is why you feel some of these emotions. Some of you cringe if I talk about something like abortion because you think, well, you're a man. Who are you to talk about that? Or if I talk about something like racism, you say, well, you're white. You can't talk about that. But when I read the Bible, I noticed that skin color is not what qualifies you to speak the truth. Nor does sex, but the truth is just the truth. Popular culture and critical theory today, like I, your pastor, as a white, straight, Christian, able-bodied, fourth-generation American male, I'm basically Darth Vader. I'm the bad guy in all the Hollywood movies.
Because what he's doing is actually playing the victim. You ever have somebody in your life who deflects criticism by taking it to the extreme? I've known a few people who have parents like this, who if you point out anything that they did that even slightly hurt you, they just start saying, oh, I guess I'm just the worst mother ever. Oh, I guess you have a terrible father, because it ends the conversation. I had a friend who would always criticize me, but if I ever called him out on anything, he would go on about how he was a giant piece of shit who could do nothing right, and he was constantly letting everybody down, instead of just acknowledging the one thing I asked him to stop doing. And he did this because it's a deflection. He wanted me to comfort him and tell him he was a good guy and a good friend. Or even if I didn't do that, at least he knew that acting that way would make me not want to call him out in the future because I want to avoid a similar meltdown. That is what not taking accountability looks like. Taking any criticism directed at white cis straight men and saying that, oh, I guess I'm just Darth Vader, that is the same hissy fit. That is the same deflection. And of course that's not true. You're not Darth Vader, Ryan. Darth Vader had a redemption arc.
All of this is really tough for the Christian because we have a high view of the individual. We have a high view of human beings.
I'm not sure that's true, but go on.
Being made in the image of God. So that means we believe that their feelings and their stories matter. We don't just look at people as data points or as statistics. We actually do care about their personal experiences. And I think the desire to fix someone's circumstance or to assuage someone's fears or to link arms with them and say, I will fight this battle with you, is good. I think it is even Christ-like in some ways. But again, when we are led by things and feelings that aren't true, we can actually be aiding and abetting in someone's destruction and societal destruction rather than something that is good.
She's currently supporting Trump's internment camps. I'm not sure if we should really take her at her word here.
All of the preventable crimes. Citizens commit crimes too, but all crimes by illegal aliens are preventable. All of these preventable crimes took place that represent a loss of life, a loss of dignity, a loss of property, a loss of economic opportunity. All of those were the result of a policy choice. We are seeing that now, that Trump has accomplished more in 5 days when it comes to immigration than Biden did over 4 years and over 4 decades. In Washington, D.C. You're going to see a lot of gaslighting, a lot of toxic empathy from Christians, from...
What if she pointed out a crime that a Jewish person did and then said, if we didn't have Jews in our country, then this crime wouldn't be happening? What if she said, if we didn't have black people in our country, then these certain crimes wouldn't have happened? People didn't come to America because their lives were super easy and they just wanted to change. America was seen as a safer place to raise their children. It was seen as a place where they didn't have to constantly look over their shoulders. Allie has children. If she lived in a place where she was afraid that something would happen to them, she would do whatever she could to protect them, including, I am sure, that she would smuggle them out of their country. What are the words carved on the Statue of Liberty? Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free.
And here's the order of deportations. First, we'll be rounding up your tired, then your poor, then your huddled masses yearning to breathe free.
Breathers. Got it.
America used to encourage immigration. They did have open borders until 1875. There were no laws preventing anyone from immigrating and becoming an American citizen. But then in 1875, it was decided that they didn't want Chinese women to enter America, so they passed their first immigration law. And then in 1882, they banned all Chinese men as well.
What was doing? So racist.
Are you kidding me?
In 1917, further laws were created to make it harder to immigrate to America, which included a list of undesirable races. American immigration laws have always been racist. And even now, these so-called illegals use social assistance far, far less than the rest of the population. They add so much to society and culture, they pay taxes, and they are still used as scapegoats anytime there are any economic problems. It is way easier to just other an entire group of people than to call out politicians, corporations, and billionaires that is actually causing the mess. It's almost like people haven't seen Wicked, or that one Simpsons episode.
All these morons getting dumber or just louder? Dumber, sir. They won't give up the Bear Patrol, but they won't pay taxes for it either.
Ducking this issue calls for real leadership. People, your taxes are high because of illegal immigrants. That's right, illegal immigrants. We need to get rid of them.
Immigrants. I knew it was them. Even when it was the Bears, I knew it was them.
And no, The Simpsons did not predict the future. This is just a tale as old as time. Other people, other races, immigration has always been used as the main scapegoat to our problems. Would you want to constantly have to prove your citizenship because of the color of your skin or your accent? Would you want to be shackled and taken to Guantanamo freaking Bay for a civil offense? Because that's what this is. Being undocumented is a civil matter. It's not a criminal matter. It's literally the same as being shackled up and put into a concentration camp because you built a fence too far over on your neighbor's property. Or should we separate our feelings from facts and realize that society is better with diversity, not worse? Would you want to be told that you can't get medical care because someone in a religion that you don't practice doesn't agree with that type of medical care? Would you want to be told that you can't marry the person that you love and who loves you? Two consenting adults who love each other because somebody else thinks that that marriage is gross? Empathy is so important for society to work, and the only people who would ever make an argument against it are the people who benefit from the suffering of others.
There are people constantly looking to play victim cards, and they're constantly getting offended. They're constantly filing HR complaints.
Uh-oh, did someone file an HR complaint against Ryan?
They're constantly making everyone feel really awkward because just deep down we know it's not supposed to be this way, where everyone's looking for a reason to be offended or to be a victim. Our secular progressive culture has elevated victims to the point that now everyone wants to be one. Think about how crazy and backwards that is.
Only the oppressor thinks that someone fighting for change is playing the victim card. They don't want to live in a society made up of different people with different backgrounds and beliefs. They want a society full of clones of themselves. They want to be a hive mind. They want to be the Borg. And they want their government to make it happen. The problem is, though, that in America, they already have the government in their pocket. And we have already seen how disastrous this way of thinking is. But just remember that when they get rid of one group, they don't stop there. Once their so-called illegal immigrants are gone, once the Muslims are gone, once all the trans people are gone, once all the gay people are gone, they don't say, okay, good, it's over, because they are always going to need scapegoats. When they get rid of everybody who doesn't look like them, when they get rid of all the non-Christians, then they start weeding out the wrong types of Christians. Then they start weeding out the right type of Christian who doesn't support the right people. We all know the poem by Pastor Martin Niemöller. First they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. It's time to speak out. For some people, it's too late. We waited too long to speak up, but we definitely can't wait any longer. Enough is enough. Donald Trump is threatening my country, as well as Greenland, Panama, Colombia, and more. I have a trans sister living in America right now who is married to someone of Mexican descent. I'm scared. My family's scared. And if you aren't scared, then you aren't paying attention. It's time to get radicalized. It's time to speak up. It's time for empathy.
T for T says they prefer to walla, not wallow, girl, but walla in their ignorance. Queen Stevie says, back from today's show. I hope that your show went well. We about to end this live. Okay, I was under 3 hours. I'm so excited. But y'all, that's not gonna be the last time we're gonna look at content or do like a review or reaction to Believe It or Not. I think we're gonna do a watch party. I low-key wanna go live again tonight, but it depends on what I got going on and stuff. But I really want to continue because they have a lot of good videos that I think that would be beneficial for us to watch and for y'all to go over there and support as well. Again, both of the content that I've used in this live is in the description box below. So make sure you go over there, subscribe to them, engage in the conversation, share their commentary, do all that good stuff. Queen Stevie says, Donald Trump is now trying to give our taxpayer dollars to the January 6th insurrectionists. White people don't deserve to get reparations. We are the ones that are owed the reparation. I mean, I don't know what else it is that we need to see, baby. Like, it's gonna get worse and worse every day. Every day is gonna be some more news. It's gonna be some more bullshit. This is the time to have different conversations. This is the time to listen to other people's commentaries who are low-key telling us what is going to happen. And not only telling us what's going to happen, but how to maneuver through that shit. Because the time is approaching in reference to action. And we have to do our part. And even though it's scary, use that fear as a motivator to stand true in who you are. Okay? So with that being said, please make sure you hit that like button because it helps the channel to grow in the algorithms. We are at 847 on the road to 1K. By you liking the video, you help us to reach that goal faster and faster, okay? If you like the vibe over here on BubzDaGawd, you can definitely click that subscribe button as well as the notification bell so that you can stay up to date with all of my lives and edited content. If there's anything I said in this live that touched and agreed with your spirit and you want to share it on your social media platforms, I do give you permission, okay, to do that. Just make sure you tag me at BubzDaGawd so I know it's real. And if you feel compelled, you can definitely hit a nigga up in the Cash App, okay? $ BubzDaGawd. We take everything that jingle, fold, and in between, okay? I'm out here subjecting myself to some of the scary content, girl, to be able to bring to y'all. So if y'all want to appreciate a nigga monetarily, girl, I'm not gonna fight you on that, okay? Because I deserve to manifest that as well. Okay, shout out to Queen Stevie who says already I will catch the rest of the replay again. Black people, stay out of those streets. I know we are tempted. Stay out of them. I agree. Shout out to Queen Stevie being in the building. Shout out for Tit for Tat being in the building. I think you guys were the only ones that were in the building for this live because I am live early. So again, shout out to y'all. Shout out to the individuals who came through and peeked their head in. Shout out to the replay gang. Okay. And until next time, everybody, y'all enjoy the rest of y'all. Today Wednesday, right? Yes, y'all, Wednesday. And also, please make sure to be in the building tonight at 9:45 on Boss Man's channel because he is going live tonight at 9:45. Let's make sure we go over there and support him, all right? And until next time, everybody, y'all have a good one. Peace. Where's my outro? Where's my outro? Here we go. Let's get it. No, that's background music. The fuck? Where's my outro? Did I put that bitch all the way at the bottom? I sure did. Okay, anyway, y'all, we out. Peace. Girl, that's still background music, girl. No, the outro, the outro. Where's the outro? There we go. Peace.
I can be anything I choose in this round. We are a sound vibration too deep to tell.